Hi friends, and welcome back to Creative Obsession. I'm Peyton Lake, maker of any and all things that bring me joy. So in today's video, we're going to be jumping into how to make this farmer's market bag. Before we jump into this video today, I just wanted to share something new that is happening on my platform, and that's a website. I've been working with my husband on setting this up. This market bag pattern will be available on the website in addition to more coming in the future. So if you've ever made something of mine and you would like to see it available on the website, leave a comment below and I will be happy to check it out and getting it transitioned over. For now, I just have the market bag. So without further ado, let's jump into the market bag pattern. Here is everything that you're generally going to need to create the pattern. More information can be found below. If you have questions, leave a comment. I am starting this pattern with a magic circle. If you have trouble with those, what I like to do is palm facing up, take the yarn and wrap it between my ring finger and my middle finger, kind of wrap that around over the index and then loop it around just the two top fingers so you create the X, and you're holding that with your thumb. Insert your hook and kind of pick up that lower yarn string and create a loop like that. And then I'm holding the other side of the yarn with my pinky to keep the tension, and then pull up a loop or do a chain stitch right there. And then you can pull your fingers out and you'll have created the magic circle. I'm sure there are easier ways to do it, but that's just the way I do it. Once you get the magic circle, you can go ahead and start single crocheting your 6 single crochet for the first round into that circle. And I'm trying to go slow just to show you, but most of you probably already know how to do a single crochet. Insert it, pull up a loop, wrap the yarn over and pull up a loop. And then once you have all of your 6 counted up, you can go ahead and verify that information and pull it tight. And then before I put the stitch marker in for the next row, I just kind of like to add the first stitch, as the first stitch of the round is my stitch marker, but it's personal preference here. So I'll just place that on the first stitch of the second round. Now on this round, we're going to be doing 2 single crochet into every stitch. So that's 1 single crochet and now 2 single crochets. And you'll just repeat this all the way around. It's going to be 2 single crochets in each stitch. So catch up with me in just a moment. After you complete the last stitch of that round, we can move on to the next round. But before we do that, sometimes it's good just to count our stitches and make sure that we've got 12 stitches. Okay, so once you got the 12, go ahead and pull your stitch marker out. And then for row 3, it is going to be increasing every other stitch or every second stitch. So we increased the first one. Now this one is going to be a single crochet. The next stitch is going to be 2 single crochets to do another increase. And again, it's just alternating. So catch back up with me when you've alternated all the way around for a total of 18 stitches. All right, last stitch in row 3. We are moving on to row 4. And at this point, you can go ahead and count your stitches just to make sure that you have 18 stitches. And once you're sure, go ahead and pull the stitch marker out, and we're moving on to, like I said, row 4. And we're starting out with 2 stitches in this first row. It's the same as the last row. I just waited to put the stitch marker on the first stitch. And now instead of doing 2 single crochets into every other stitch, we're going to do every third. So that's 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, and then that's 2 single crochet into that third stitch. And this same pattern will repeat all the way around. It's going to be 2 single crochets into every third stitch. So I'll catch up with you in just a minute. All right, and there's the last stitch on row 4. So now moving on, you can count, but now you should be at 24 stitches. And we're gonna jump into row 5, which we're gonna go ahead and pull the stitch marker out, insert, and once again, we're increasing on this first stitch. I'm adding the stitch marker back in. It doesn't really matter when you add it, but increasing on the first stitch, and then instead of doing increases every third, we're going to do increase every fourth stitch. So 1, 2, 3, and this is the fourth stitch, so increase on this one, 2 single crochet. And then I'll just keep counting all the way around like that. 1, 2, 3, increase on the fourth. And I'll catch you back up at the end of this row. All right, so that's the end of row 5, and now you'll start to notice that these corners are starting to stick out, and that is intentional because I've been creating the increases all in the exact same spots, and that will create what will become the pattern on the bottom of the bag. So let me just show you what this looks like when you get done with the first 24 rows of the pattern. Is this. It creates the beautiful swirl that you see in the middle. If you do increases all in the same area, it has the swirl, and I just thought it would be really fun to do on this particular pattern. Of course, you can stagnate them or alter them as you want, but this was what I prefer to do. Hey, it's Peyton. Fun fact, I'm editing this video right now and I realized that I did not explain the base of the bag well enough for you to just like jump straight into the pattern. So back to the base. You left off on row 5 where it was increasing every fourth stitch. And as I was showing you up to row 5, the pattern was starting to increase 1 stitch number out from the last row. But on row 5, you increased every fourth single crochet. So on row 6, you're going to increase every fifth. And then on row 7, you'll increase every sixth. And then on row 8, increase every seventh. So you'll just keep this pattern back up where it's like 1 stitch further until you increase again on each subsequent row. So it works all the way up until you hit row 24, and that is the last row in the bag, and that row worked up to increase every 23rd stitch. So in the video that I'm about to play, you'll see me counting. I'm counting to make sure the stitches between the increases are the 22 stitches before I hit an increase, and that's how I knew that I was good on some of them, but then I made a mistake, and I'll jump into that. Yeah, so sorry about that. And if at any point in this pattern you're like, Peyton, what are you even talking about? Please just go to my website. I swear, just go to my website and I'll have pictures, and maybe it will make a little bit more sense in addition to the video. But otherwise, keep watching it, and I am gonna pop back on a couple more times because I may need to. So yeah. Once you're already done with the base, you can move on to row 25, which will include double crochets and chains alternated. To start that, I've already got a single crochet setup going, and I'm going to pull through 2 and insert my hook back into that first loop and pull through 2 and do a chain. And this mimics a double crochet, and then we're going to double crochet into the next stitch. Pull through 2 and 2. And now for the next, we're going to chain 1 and chain 2 and skip over 2 chain spaces. And then we're going to double crochet in the third single crochet away from that double. So insert for a double crochet, add another double crochet, and then we'll do 2 chains. And that is the entire pattern. It's alternating between 2 double crochet and 2 chain stitches, and just counting out to make sure that we're skipping those chain stitches or those chain space openings at the bottom. So we've got our double crochet pair, and now chain 1, 2, skip 1 and 2, and then we're going to double crochet into the third, and since we're doing double crochet pairs, another double crochet, and now just chain 2. And then you'll just keep repeating this pattern all the way around for row 25. So 2 double crochets followed by 2 chain stitches and skipping the 2 single crochets below. And then on next rows after that, they will be actually skipping over the chain space openings. So yeah, I'm just going to skip ahead here and show you what happens if you do end up running into a mistake where you skipped a stitch like I did, and I'm going to show you how I fixed that. All right, so coming up on if you realize somewhere in here you have skipped a stitch because your double crochets are not lining out to be exactly within the spiral as all the previous ones, I went ahead and pretended like that stitch was still there. So instead of skipping 2 single crochets right here, I pretended like there was 2 still to skip, and I just crocheted into the second stitch, what would have been the third stitch away. So just double crocheting into that and pretending like it's always been this way. And then whenever you zoom out and you have the entire mesh, nobody's really gonna know. I mean, what's that one TikTok sound? Oh yeah, and then fun fact, even when you make mistakes, you can still make follow-up mistakes. So I immediately realized that I needed to add the 2 chain stitches and then fix my previous mistake, which is double crochet into the second stitch away, pretending like it's actually the third stitch. So yes, creators make mistakes. This is how I fixed my mistake. I could have left it out of the video, but I felt like it was a good learning opportunity in case you find you skipped a stitch don't worry about pulling it all out. Nobody has time for that. Just pretend like it's there and do it anyway, because it's not going to make a big difference in the grand scheme of the bag. And if anybody sees that, they're not your friend. I'm just kidding. They can still be your friend, but like, who is really going to know? So yeah, and then you just keep crocheting along as if nothing ever happened. And I'll catch back up with you again. Once you're done with row 25 and you're ready to do your slip stitch to complete that row, you can just do the traditional slip stitch, which is inserting from the front to the back, but I actually like to insert my hook from back to front just to create a more seamless looking slip stitch. But as you can tell, sometimes it does take a little bit to get it to work, so you may have to play around with it if you decide to do this method. But yeah, it's just my preferred front to back slip stitch. So yeah, once you get it, then I like to hook on the yarn and pull it through front to back that way. And then I pull the yarn actually in front of the loop right here. And then I do a special double crochet type. So I kind of like give myself a little bit of slack right there at the top and insert the hook into that stitch again and pull up to complete a single crochet. And then to mimic a double, I'll grab the first closest loop of yarn to make 2 and another single crochet and add a chain on top of that. And that counts as 1 double crochet. So this is what it looks like. I don't remember where I learned that, but I prefer that method of joining in the round for when you're working with this particular bag. You can just do chain spaces and slip stitches like you normally do, though. You don't have to do anything special. I just find that this really hides the start of every single row when you do it. So yeah, this is the start of row 26. And it's just the same as the prior row. We're going to be doing 2 double crochet on top of the previous double crochet, doing the 2 chain stitches, and you'll just continue the same pattern that you did previously all the way around. And that is like the entire basis of the bag. So you just keep repeating that from row 25 to row 50. And I will catch back up with you whenever I'm done with that. After you've completed your 50th row, your bag will look something like this with the center chain mesh, and now it's time to move on to straps. Here is more of a curved version. That's my preference, but I do have another straight up and down version. This yellow bag is more straight up and down, so whichever one you want to do. I'm going to start out with the yellow one, but I will jump into how to do the white one later in the video, so just jump ahead if you need to. And at any point in time, if you have questions, leave them below, or I have more information about this pattern on my website, links below. So jumping into the first strap option, which was, again, the yellow bag, we're going to be starting strong with doing a decrease double crochet here. So I'm going to mimic a double crochet by inserting, pulling up a loop till you have 2 loops, pull through 2, then you're going to pick up the nearest loop to you, pull through 2 again, and this is when I usually add a chain 1 to mimic that, but this is a decrease, so insert it to the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and then we pull through 2 again, and that is going to be our decreased double crochet. And now we can add a chain 1 at the top of this and continue on with the strap by completing the next 3 double crochet clusters as mostly normal. So there's 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2. Here is 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2. And now this is the 3rd double crochet cluster. And now, hold on just a second, chain 1, and we're going to pause right there. So we got the decrease, 1, 2, 3 double crochet clusters, and now we're going to do another decrease. So insert pull up a loop, pull through 2, and insert into the next double crochet. And since we're doing a decrease, we'll join that one together. So if you don't know how to do decreases, let me know if I need to like go slower here. Please let me know if I need to go slower. Okay, turning back for what would be row 52, we are going to start out by doing a double crochet into that decrease. So I'm just doing the mimic double crochet that I showed you before, and then I'm adding a chain 1 on top. And then I'll just do 3 double crochet clusters as normal. So there's 1, there's 2, and there is 3. So now we're just going to do a chain 1 and complete this row by adding a double crochet on the end of it. And that is the exact same pattern that we're going to use all the way on the strap. So that same double crochet and then chain 1, 3 double crochets in the center will be your entire strap. So once you have that row down, you'll just continue that row all the way out. Hey, nice to see you here again. Part 2 of how I forgot to explain things. So you left off on row 51, and then I was like, oh, and this is how you do row 52, and then all the rows beyond until... You were like, until what, Peyton? Until row 107. So here's the strap that we're in question of right now. And, okay, so the video goes from this row, which is row 51. That's your decrease. And then your 1, 2, 3 center double crochet clusters, and then your decrease on the outside. And then row 52 was the 1 single crochet with the 1, 2, 3 clusters, and then the other single on the outside. So from row 52 all the way until row 107, la 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 la, I think it is this one, yeah, until row 107. So this is going to be row 107 right here. Then you're going to do, for row 108, you're going to do an increase on the outer portions right here. So you'll start out, do an increase on those 2 outer single crochet on each side, but then the middle will stay exactly the same. Okay, just for reference, whenever you are done with row 108, where you've got your increase, your 3 double crochet clusters in the center, you're going to lay the yarn down on the piece that you're going to be sewing it back and forth. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you'll cut it there. And then before you do anything with the yarn, make sure that you add a chain stitch and then pull through the chain stitch. Okay, so I was just writing out, whenever you go to start on your second strap, you want to make sure that you have 4 double crochet clusters in between each set of straps. So when you start the next one, just count over 4 clusters, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on the 5th away from it is actually where you start the decrease for the next strap. So then that will be 5 clusters across that you're working. And then make sure whenever you go to sew these on that you have 4 double crochet clusters between each strap, so that everything is spaced evenly. And obviously you can make an adjustment if you prefer your straps to be more on the outside. So maybe the best thing for you to do would be mark with stitch markers or a piece of yarn the 5 clusters that belong to each strap, and play around with like visually spacing where you would want your straps to be for your own bag. If you wanted to space them evenly, it's 4 clusters in between each 5 clusters that belong to the actual strap. To start the strap, we're going to complete a decreased double crochet. So I'm going to mimic a double crochet by inserting, pulling up a loop till you have 2 loops, pull through 2, then you're going to pick up the nearest loop to you, pull through 2 again, and this is when I usually add a chain 1 to mimic that, but this is a decrease, so insert it to the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and then we pull through 2 again, and that is going to be our decreased double crochet. And now we can add a chain 1 at the top of this and continue on with the strap by completing the next 7 double crochet clusters as we normally would. Turning back for row 52, we are going to complete a double crochet equivalent. So insert your hook, pull up a loop and pull through 2, and then we're going to grab the nearest loop, pull through 2 again, and chain 1. So we've got 1 double crochet on the outside, and then we're going to do a decrease into this next cluster. So pull up a loop, pull through, and pull through 2, insert, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and then we're going to pull through all those to complete a double crochet decrease. And we're going to chain 1, and then for the next one we're going to complete just a double crochet cluster as normal. So there's 1 double crochet, here's 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2, and it'll look something like this. I did spot a mistake. If you see it too, leave a comment below, but we're gonna pretend like it didn't happen. And now we complete 4 double crochet clusters as normal. Coming up to the end of row 52, add a chain 1 leading up to these last 2 clusters. We're going to add a decrease into this first to last. So just work in that decrease, and then we're going to go straight in to complete a double crochet for the outer border just above that previous double crochet. And when you're done, row 52 will look like this. All right, so for row 53, we are going to complete a double crochet on the outside, or the double crochet equivalent. And since we are going to join this to the next one, no need for a chain stitch here. And there is our decrease on the outside. And I forgot to add a chain 1, but you can definitely do that here. And then I'm going to create a double crochet decrease to join all of these together. So we got a big hunkin', everything gets joined together right here. Chain 1, and now I'm moving on to complete a regular double crochet cluster for the next 3 as normal. And now we're going to be joining all of this mess next. So let's start out by doing a chain 1 to get to the next one, and then we're going to decrease this one. So there's one decrease, and then we're going to turn the next one into a double crochet as well. And I'm going to shoot for a double crochet decrease. So there's one, and we're going to pick up the outside border too. And there we have row 53 complete. And now we can go ahead and move on to row 54. All right, so turning for row 54, we are going to start out by doing the double crochet equivalent on the outside. So inserting, pulling through 2, picking up that nearest loop, pull through 2, and then we're going to decrease on the outside. So instead of the chain 1, we'll insert it into the next one, pull through 2, pull through 2, and now we've got the decrease on the outside. We'll have 3 clusters on the inside and another decrease on the outside. So add a chain 1. Now complete the next 3 clusters as normal. Chain 1, and now we're going to decrease all of the next set together. So there's one part of the decrease, and there's the second part of the decrease. Pull through all that, and then that is it for this row. And we're going to turn our work and move on to the next row. And now for the start of row 55 all the way till you hit row 105, we're going to be repeating the same pattern, which is doing the mimic double crochet on the border where you insert, create a single crochet, pick up a loop, pull through 2, and then add a chain stitch for your outer crochet. And then we're going to complete 3 double crochet clusters in the center of your piece. Once you have all of those 3 clusters completed, you're going to move on to adding the chain 1 after the 3rd cluster. And we're going to add that double crochet on the outer border to complete row 55. And row 55 repeats all the way till row 105. So yeah, this is what it's going to look like lined out, and you just keep going up and crocheting that same pattern all the way until you hit row 105. Okay, so jumping back to once you have completed all the way up to row 104, you're ready to start row 105. We're going to start out with a double crochet mimic on the outside. I apologize, it's a little fuzzy right now. And we're going to do an increase in this first stitch as well. Add a chain 1. So it's going to look something like this. And now we're going to complete those center double crochets in the middle, just like they are. And once you're done with that, add a chain 1 on the end, so it's looking like this. And we're gonna add an increase on the outer edge of this row as well. Alright, so at the end of the row 105, it will look something like this. And now we're turning for row 106. For this row, we are going to complete your mimic double crochet on the outside. Add your chain 1 at the top. And now we're going to be increasing into that next stitch. So that one right there, moving on to an increase here. And now the center ones we're going to keep the same. So just your chain 2 spaces leading up to them and the double crochet clusters in the middle. So we're coming down to the last double crochet on the end, and now we're going to mimic how the first of that row started. So we've got the chain 1 already on there, and now we're going to insert into that first double crochet of the cluster and do an increase double crochet here with 2 double crochet placed in. We're going to do a chain 1, and then on the outside double crochet we're going to add a single standalone double crochet again as well. So we'll end up looking something like this once you're done with row 106. And then turning for row 107, sorry, it gets a little fuzzy sometimes. We're going to add that mimic double crochet on the outside edge. Add your chain 1. And we're going to work an increase also into this outer portion too. So just go back in and add in 2 double crochet to that outer edge. So it looks something like this. Then you're going to chain 2. And then you'll go into your next double crochet cluster as normal. And you'll just keep going all through your next double crochet clusters as normal until you reach the other edge. Alright, so coming up on the edge of this row 107, we're just going in and completing that last double crochet cluster and moving on to the outer portion. So we're going to mimic how we started out, which is by chaining 1 and 2, and then we're going to place a double crochet increase into this outer stitch right here. Sorry, I'm tracking a little off camera, but I'm doing an increase into that outer double crochet. And then you're going to add a chain 1 and go back in for 1 more double crochet on that edge. So then once you're done with the row, it's gonna start looking a little wonky, which is okay. I know this pattern is not perfect, but this is just how I got the straps to be a little curved so that they attached. And then you turn back and we're going in for row 108. So starting out strong for row 108, we're gonna give ourselves that mimic double crochet on the outside border again. And we're doing an increase on this outside border as well. So then chain 1, and all of our next clusters until we get to the very end are gonna be the same. So just start double crocheting with the chain 2 spaces as normal, all until you get to the next edge. All right, coming up on the last double crochet set before the outside edge, we are going to insert into this last double crochet cluster as normal. So we're just adding a cluster on top of it, and then we're going to add a chain 1, and we're going to do an increase into that outer single double crochet only. And then it should look something like this. And this completes row 108. So you are done and ready to count it up just to make sure that it's going to match. You should have 9 double crochet clusters that will match up with your 9 that you have marked off, hopefully, for your bag. And you're going to place it on the one directly next to it, just making sure that the straps line up. Once you've completed the last row for the strap, you'll want to move on to attaching it. To do that, I like to add a chain stitch on the end, and then you just pull the chain stitch through. But just to show you how long of a tail you're likely going to want, I, for the purpose of this video, did 3 passes of laying the strand over the section that I'm going to be stitching. So once, twice, and then 3 times. But actually, since I'm overestimating, I think it's much safer to estimate 4 passes back and forth over the whip stitch area that you're going to be doing so that you have enough yarn to make sure. And then once you're ready, just snip the yarn off and we can get to whip stitching. So don't forget to pull that chain stitch all the way through so that it does secure that knot. Now when it comes to the actual whip stitching here, I am going to be using a back loop only all the way down the strap, and then a front loop only all the way back to where I started. So yeah, you can see I'm trying to show you I'm working in the back loop only. So I'm going to start out in the back loop of the actual strap, and do make sure that your straps are lined. I know they are for the purpose of this video, but just make sure that it's laid out and it's going to be sewn on properly before you get started and sew it up incorrectly. But if you do, it's okay. You can always restart. So just to show you, when you zoom in, this is the back loop only on that first double crochet area that I'm doing. And we're still working with that first double crochet cluster, so moving on to the second double crochet here. Back loop only. Picking that up and pulling it all the way through. Now remember these chain spaces, again, it's 2 chains for the bag and 1 for the strap. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick up both of those chain spaces on the bag and match them up with the single chain space on the strap. And then pull through all of that just to whip stitch that together. And now the rest of them up to the next end of the bag are all just going to be matching up your double crochet clusters and your chain stitches with all the back loops only. So yeah, you'll just keep whip stitching all the way until you get to the next set that doesn't match, which again is the single chain spaces on the outsides. So I'm going to skip ahead whip stitching and catch back up with you when we get to that, just to remind you. Again, coming to the end of the strap where we're whip stitching back loops only, showing you that 2 chain space on the bag is matching up to the single chain space on the strap. This is just a closer up version. I picked both those loops up for the back and then the single on the strap, and I just pull it through all. And then the outer 2 double crochets are just normal. So I go ahead and complete those. 1 and 2. And now your strap is completely sewed on there, so it's gonna look something like this, which is not complete, even though it is sewed on there. We're gonna do another pass where we sew or whip stitch the front loops only. But before I jump into that, a lot of times I like to secure the border just a little bit. You can do what you want, but I'm gonna secure the border, so I'm just gonna add an extra little whip stitch on the end of it. And then I can move on to whip stitching the front loops only. So just to show you, our front loops are going to be right here is one of the front ones for the strap. And then the front one for the bag is right there. And just to show you, they're like the outer ribbed edges kind of. And that is where we'll be whip stitching all the way back down. So yeah, now I'll do the second double crochet for this set. And then before I hop off, again, I'm just reminding you, the single on the strap matches up with the double on the bag for the outside clusters only. And then all the rest of them in the center are just going to be matching up the loops as you whip stitch. So I'm going to finish whip stitching all the way down and then come back to you when I get to the next set. All right, back to the end of the whip stitching. I'm sorry, I've gotten a lot of off camera here, but yeah, it's just matching up that single loop on the strap to the 2 on the base of the bag. Pulling it through to give it a good secure stitch. And then you just complete the whip stitch of those 2 double crochet on the border, as I am doing here. 1 and 2. And if you want to add another secure whip stitch on the outside portion like I did at the end of the last section, I do that and you totally can too. And then you can weave in your ends whenever you're ready. But yeah, this is what the whip stitched bag and strap are going to look like if you choose to do this. I know some people can crochet, but this is just the method that I chose for my pattern. Once your straps are all crocheted on and you've got them sewed together, now you can decide if you're going to do the optional aesthetic finish, which is crocheting them together even more. And to do this, you'll want to count up 4 posts from the base of the bag and put a stitch marker on it. And you'll want to do that for every single part of the strap. So on both sides of the strap for all 4 straps. See, there's the base. You go 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that is where I'm placing the stitch marker. And I did that for every strap because this will indicate where I stop and start. Some of this optional aesthetic finish, again, totally optional. It could already be done if you want it to be. So yeah, we're just gonna be crocheting it together. What I'm gonna do is start crocheting from 1 stitch marker and crochet over to the next stitch marker, and then fold the handles in half like this and crochet along the outside of it all the way till the next set of stitch markers. So once you're ready, go ahead and pick where you're going to start. I'm going to start below the stitch marker. I'm just going to grab my yarn and pull up a loop. And honestly, it doesn't matter. You could do any kind of chain stitch going on here. Really, however you normally get stitches going when you insert yarn. I'm just pulling them both through because why not? And then I'm going to place 3 single crochets into this stitch. So there's 1, there's 2, and 3. And that is your first set. And then anywhere that there is a chain space opening, I'm going to be placing 3 more single crochets into those stitches. So here is this one. 1, 2, and 3. And I just keep doing that all the way around until I hit the next stitch marker. And it's okay if there's not like a perfect science to where you're deciding to crochet, because there was some that I probably could have crocheted into or some that I chose not to. The main thing is crochet into the chain space openings from one side of the bag to the other. Nobody's going to count to make sure that it's perfectly even on all sides of your bag, so don't worry about it. And then once you get down to the last one, moving on to now we are looking at where the stitch markers are. This is what it's going to look like generally. So now you can fold your strap in half, and we're going to be crocheting into both the front and the back where the stitch markers are placed. So you'll just pop it through the front, pop it through the back, and now we'll single crochet 3 into this one as well. So there is 1, and you can take the stitch markers out or leave them in. It probably would be easier if you took them out. There is 2, and I'm going to take them out. So now we're on to 3. And now that you've got those done, we're going to be placing 2 single crochet stitches into all of the actual strap portion of the bag. So now we're just going to put, and try to match these up so all the chain space openings are matched to the other side so it doesn't get sideways on you. So there's 1 and 2, and I just wiggle it around until I get it to fit for the new chain space opening. There's 2, and then you just keep doing that all the way around until you get to the next set of stitch markers. Okay, we hit the next set of stitch markers. Now what do? This is where we're going to place 3 single crochets into this chain space opening. So front to the back, there's 1 single. Go ahead and take the stitch markers out, please. It's a lot easier without them. There is 2. And then go ahead and place a 3rd. I totally forgot to place a 3rd here because sometimes I'm forgetful whenever I'm trying to film a video. So yeah, now I'm just showing you what it's going to look like if you crochet all the way around. and then you crochet to the inside of that strap. So pick your yarn back up and get situated to crochet to the back only now. And again, we're crocheting 3 single crochet. Forget that I accidentally missed one before. So there is the opening that I'm going to go into next. So 1, 2, and 3. I can actually count this time. Moving on, we're going to do 1, 2, and 3. And yeah, you just keep doing that until you get to the other side where the stitch marker was, but no longer is. And again, it doesn't really matter if it's not a perfect science of how many, but if you want, you can totally count how many you have on the other side to know how many 3 clusters you're going to be doing on this side. And then once you get to the other side, you can go ahead and just chain 1 and cut it and pull it through the loop there. So now that we're done with that section, to move on to the next section, it's the exact same thing, except you start where you left off from that previous strap to the new one, fold it over, crochet around, and then on the underside, just like you did this one. So you just repeat it all over again. Hey, it's Peyton. If you made it to the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate you watching to this point. It's just phenomenal. So thank you. If you have any questions left from the video, leave them below. And if there's anything else that you look forward to me potentially making in the future with the same format-ish, leave me a comment below so I can check that out. But otherwise, thanks for watching and bye!